The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the worried chatter of 1,000 different species. Ambassador Zexithara of the Vortani Empire tapped her 6-clawed fingers against the crystalline table, her blue-scaled face twisted in frustration. Across from her, the gaseous form of Counselor Nimbus flickered with agitated orange hues, while the insectoid hive queen Clictar clicked her mandibles in rapid succession. "The humans have withdrawn from all joint operations," Zexithara announced, her voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "They've recalled their fleets, their diplomats, their trade representatives. Everything." The massive holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the current galactic map, where once human territories had been marked in cooperative blue, indicating their participation in the Galactic Alliance. Now they glowed a stark, independent white. 17 systems, including Earth, had officially declared themselves neutral and self-governing. "This is unprecedented," wheezed Counselor Gorthak through his breathing apparatus. The elderly Methanian had witnessed 3 galactic wars in his lifetime, but nothing like this. In the history of the Alliance, no species has ever voluntarily withdrawn from all cooperative agreements simultaneously. Queen Clictar's compound eyes focused on the display. "Our analysis indicates this began after the Kepler Station incident. The humans requested assistance with the mining operation and we declined." The chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered the request. Kepler Station was positioned in an asteroid field rich with rare elements needed for faster-than-light travel. The mining operation was dangerous, requiring precision and technology that pushed the boundaries of what was considered safe. The Alliance Council had voted against providing assistance, citing resource allocation priorities and risk assessment protocols. "They said they understood our position," Zexithara continued, reviewing her notes. "They thanked us politely and said they would handle it themselves. We thought that was the end of it." But it hadn't been the end. Within 6 months, the humans had not only successfully completed the Kepler Station mining operation, but had exceeded all projected yields by 300%. They had developed new extraction techniques, created innovative safety protocols, and turned what should have been a barely profitable venture into a massive success. And they had done it entirely without Alliance support. "The concerning part isn't just their withdrawal," Nimbus flickered, his gaseous form shifting to deep red. "It's what they're doing instead." The holographic display changed, showing intelligence reports from across human space. Massive construction projects had begun on every human world. Shipyards that had been building vessels for Alliance joint operations were now producing purely human designs. Research facilities that had been sharing data with Alliance scientists were now operating under complete information lockdown. "They're building something," Gorthak observed, his breathing becoming more labored with anxiety. "Our sensors detect massive energy signatures from their core worlds, but we can't determine what they're constructing." Zexithara pulled up another display. "Our trade analysis shows they've also become completely self-sufficient. They're no longer importing anything from Alliance worlds. Food, raw materials, technology components, they're producing everything internally now." This was perhaps the most unsettling development of all. The galactic economy had evolved over millennia based on interdependence. Every species had developed specializations, creating a complex web of trade relationships that kept everyone connected and, theoretically, peaceful. The Vortani were masters of energy manipulation, the Methanians excelled at atmospheric processing, the Hive Collective was unmatched in biological engineering. Humans had been the generalists, good at many things, excellent at adaptation and problem-solving, but not the absolute best at any single discipline. They served as coordinators, mediators, and innovators within the Alliance structure. Their withdrawal shouldn't have been possible from an economic standpoint. "How are they managing complete self-sufficiency?" Queen Clictar demanded. Our projections indicated they would face critical shortages within weeks of ceasing trade. That's what we thought, Zexathara admitted, but our intelligence suggests they've been preparing for this for some time. Remember the redundancy projects they kept proposing in council sessions? The ones we voted down for being wasteful and unnecessary? The council members exchanged uneasy looks. They did remember. For the past several years, human representatives had consistently proposed backup systems, alternative supply chains, and what they called contingency infrastructure. The Alliance had repeatedly denied funding for these projects, viewing them as paranoid and inefficient. They built them anyway, Gorthak realized, his breathing apparatus hissing, using their own resources. It appears so, Zexathara confirmed. While we were focused on optimization and efficiency through specialization, they were quietly developing the capability to operate independently. The implications were staggering. If humans could achieve complete self-sufficiency while maintaining their technological advancement, it challenged the fundamental assumptions underlying galactic civilization. More concerning was what they might do with that independence. "There's more," Nimbus announced, his form flickering with urgent yellow patterns. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity along the galactic rim. Ships of unknown configuration, moving in coordinated patterns." The display shifted again, showing sensor readings from the outer edge of known space. Strange vessels, clearly of human design but unlike anything in the Alliance databases, were conducting systematic surveys of previously unexplored regions. "They're not just withdrawing," Queen Clicktar realized, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "They're expanding, without consulting anyone, without following exploration protocols, without Alliance oversight." This violated numerous treaties and agreements that had governed galactic expansion for centuries. New worlds were supposed to be explored jointly, with resources and discoveries shared among Alliance members. The careful process ensured no single species could gain too much advantage or encounter unknown dangers alone. "We need to consider the possibility," Zexathara said slowly, "that the humans are preparing for something we don't understand. Their withdrawal from all cooperative frameworks, their achievement of self-sufficiency, their unauthorized expansion, these aren't random actions." "You think they know something we don't?" Gorthak asked. "I think they've decided we're not reliable partners," she replied. "And that terrifies me more than any external threat we've ever faced." The council chamber erupted in agitated discussion. Representatives from dozens of species voiced their concerns, theories, and fears. Some suggested immediate diplomatic intervention, others proposed economic sanctions, and a few even mentioned the possibility of military action. But Zexathara stared at the display showing human space, those 17 systems glowing with independent white light, and felt a chill run through her scaled skin. In all her years of diplomatic service, she had learned to read between the lines of political maneuvering. The humans weren't just withdrawing from the Alliance, they were preparing for war. Not war against the Alliance necessarily, but war against something. Their actions suggested they had identified a threat that required complete independence, total self-sufficiency, and unlimited expansion capability. The question that kept her awake during her sleep cycles was simple and terrifying. What did the humans know that the rest of the galaxy didn't? As the council session continued with increasingly heated debates about appropriate responses to human withdrawal, none of the representatives noticed the subtle changes beginning to occur throughout Alliance space. Communication delays that lasted just a few seconds longer than normal. Trade shipments that arrived slightly behind schedule. Energy fluctuations in space that barely registered on sensors. The humans had been the galaxy's generalists, its problem solvers, its adaptable coordinators. Their withdrawal was like removing a critical component from a vast machine. Everything would continue to function for a while, but small inefficiencies would begin to compound. And somewhere in the depths of space, beyond the reach of Alliance sensors, ancient things that had slumbered for millions of years began to stir. Things that had been held in check by patterns and balances that no one fully understood, maintained by a species that had quietly made themselves indispensable to galactic stability. The humans had tried to warn them, in their own subtle way. The redundancy projects, the backup systems, the contingency plans, all had been attempts to prepare the Alliance for what was coming, but the Council had been too focused on efficiency and cost-effectiveness to listen. Now humanity was handling the problem alone, the way they always had when cooperation failed. And the universe was about to learn why that phrase, "Forget it, I'll do it alone," had become humanity's unofficial motto throughout their short but explosive history. The disorder was coming, and only one species was prepared for it. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive construction project unfold before them through the viewscreen. The Forge, humanity's greatest engineering achievement, stretched across 3 asteroid fields, its metallic framework gleaming against the star field. Thousands of automated construction drones moved in perfect choreography, assembling components that defied traditional understanding of physics and engineering. "Status report," she called to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Rodriguez checked his displays. "All defensive positions are operational, Captain. The early warning network shows no Alliance vessels within 50 light years. We're clear to continue operations." Sarah nodded, but her expression remained tense. 3 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Alliance, and they had used every moment to prepare for what was coming. The other species thought humans had simply gotten frustrated with bureaucracy and politics. They had no idea how wrong they were. "Captain," called Dr. Marcus Webb from the science station, "we're receiving the scheduled transmission from Deep Survey Team Alpha." "Put it through." The main screen shifted to show Commander Lisa Park, her face grim despite the poor signal quality from the galactic rim. Behind her, strange geometric structures were visible through the observation deck of her survey ship. "Captain Chen, I'm afraid our worst fears are confirmed. We've found 17 more sites, all showing the same activation patterns. The Architect's dormant installations are waking up across the entire outer rim." Sarah felt her stomach drop. The Architects, that's what the human xenoarchaeology team had dubbed them when they first discovered evidence of the ancient civilization. Beings that had existed millions of years ago, who had built massive installations throughout the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked. "Based on the energy buildup patterns, I estimate 6 months before the first installations come fully online. Maybe 8 if we're lucky." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Sarah turned to address her crew, seeing the mixture of fear and determination on their faces. "You all know what this means," she said. "The Alliance refused to listen when we presented the archaeological evidence. They dismissed our warnings about the Architect installations as human paranoia and overactive imagination. They chose politics over preparation." Dr. Webb stepped forward. "Captain, if I may address the crew?" Sarah nodded, and the elderly scientist cleared his throat before speaking. "For those who weren't part of the initial discovery team, let me explain what we're facing. The Architects were a spacefaring civilization that existed approximately 3 million years ago. They built massive installations throughout the galaxy, installations designed to reset galactic civilization when it reached certain parameters. He activated a holographic display showing the archaeological findings. We believe they faced some kind of existential threat that required extreme measures. Before they disappeared, they created these installations as a failsafe. When galactic civilization reaches specific thresholds, population density, energy consumption, technological advancement, the installations activate." "What do they do when they activate?" asked Rodriguez. Dr. Webb's expression grew darker. They eliminate all spacefaring civilizations and reset galactic development to pre-industrial levels. We found evidence of at least 4 previous galactic civilizations that were wiped out this way. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. This was why humanity had withdrawn from the Alliance. Not frustration with politics, but preparation for an extinction-level event that their fellow species refused to acknowledge. The Alliance Council reviewed our evidence for 18 months, Sarah continued. They assigned study committees, formed investigation panels, and ultimately concluded that our findings were interesting but speculative. They refused to authorize preparations for a threat they couldn't accept was real. So we decided to handle it ourselves, added Dr. Webb, just like we always have when cooperation fails. Through the view screen, the forge continued its relentless construction. The massive shipyards were producing vessels unlike anything in human history. Ships designed not for exploration or trade, but for a war against an enemy that had been planning this conflict for 3 million years. "Captain," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Put it through." Admiral Rebecca Harrison appeared on screen, her weathered face showing the strain of coordinating humanity's desperate preparations. "Sarah, I hope your construction is ahead of schedule. We just received word from our Deep Space Monitoring Network. Alliance Space is experiencing system-wide failures. Trade routes are breaking down, communication networks are becoming unreliable, and several member species are reporting unusual energy phenomena." The preliminary effects, Sarah realized. The installations are drawing power from galactic infrastructure. That's our assessment. The Alliance is finally starting to notice something's wrong, but they're still attributing it to technical malfunctions and normal system degradation. They have no idea their entire civilization is being systematically weakened in preparation for termination. Dr. Webb joined the conversation. "Admiral, what's the status of the evacuation protocols?" "Proceeding as planned, but we can only save a fraction of the Alliance populations. Our ships simply don't have the capacity for a galaxy-wide evacuation, especially since we're building for combat rather than transport." This was the most heartbreaking aspect of humanity's situation. They had tried to save everyone through cooperation and shared preparation. When that failed, they could only save themselves and whoever was willing to listen. Unfortunately, very few Alliance species had been willing to believe human warnings about an ancient threat. "There is some good news," Admiral Harrison continued. "Our combat simulations show promising results. The Architect installations are powerful, but they're ancient. Our technology has some advantages they didn't anticipate." "Such as?" Sarah asked. "Quantum communication networks that they can't jam, adaptive AI systems that can learn and counter their tactics, and most importantly, human unpredictability. Their simulations seem to be based on logical, predictable civilizations. We're anything but logical and predictable." Sarah smiled grimly. "The chaos factor." "Exactly. Every previous galactic civilization apparently followed similar development patterns: specialization, interdependence, bureaucratic efficiency. They were easy for the Architect systems to analyze and counter, but humans never fit the standard model." This was true. Throughout their membership in the Alliance, humans had been the odd ones out. They refused to specialize like other species, maintaining broad technological capabilities instead of focusing on narrow expertise. They insisted on redundant systems and backup plans that seemed wasteful to efficiency-focused alien minds. They prepared for problems that might never occur and maintained capabilities that served no obvious purpose. "Captain," Rodriguez interrupted, "we're detecting incoming ships. Alliance configuration." Sarah sighed. She had been expecting this. "How many?" "Looks like a full diplomatic fleet. 12 vessels led by a Vortani heavy cruiser." "They finally noticed something's wrong and want answers," Dr. Webb observed. Put the fleet on general alert, but maintain non-aggressive posture, Sarah ordered. Let's hear what they have to say. 20 minutes later, Ambassador Zexathera's image appeared on the main screen. The Vortani diplomat looked exhausted, her normally pristine blue scales showing signs of stress molting. Captain Chen, I come representing the Galactic Council with an urgent request for information. Alliance space is experiencing unprecedented system failures, and our analysis suggests the epicenter of these disturbances is located within human space. I'm not sure what you mean, Ambassador, Sarah replied carefully. Please, Captain. We know humans have withdrawn from all cooperative agreements and are conducting unauthorized activities. We need to understand what's happening before our civilization collapses entirely. Sarah looked at Dr. Webb, who nodded slightly. They had always known this moment would come. Ambassador, 3 years ago we presented evidence to the Council about ancient installations designed to eliminate galactic civilizations. The Council rejected our findings and refused to authorize defensive preparations. Zexathara's expression shifted from frustration to recognition. The architect theory, the Council classified those findings as speculative at best. The installations are activating, Dr. Webb interjected. The system failures you're experiencing are preliminary effects. The installations are drawing power from galactic infrastructure to prepare for a complete civilization reset. That's impossible, Zexathera protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Sarah activated the holographic display, showing real-time data from the survey teams. 17 installations have begun activation sequences. Energy buildup suggests full operational status within 6 months. When that happens, every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy will be eliminated. The ambassador stared at the data for several long moments. Why didn't you tell us this was imminent? We tried, Dr. Webb said simply. For 18 months we tried. The Council wouldn't listen. So you decided to handle it alone. We decided to save who we could, Sarah corrected, including any Alliance species willing to believe us and evacuate to secure areas. Zexathara was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. How many can you save? Current evacuation capacity is limited to approximately 50 million individuals from all species combined. Preference goes to essential personnel, genetic diversity candidates, and cultural preservation specialists. Out of a galactic population of trillions. Yes. The weight of that number hung in the space between the ships. The Alliance had billions of years of combined civilization, thousands of unique species, countless artistic and scientific achievements. Humanity could save only the smallest fraction. There is another option, Sarah said quietly. Help us fight. Fight ancient installations that eliminated previous galactic civilizations? With what? With human ingenuity and alien expertise working together the way it should have from the beginning. We've spent 3 months preparing for this war. Our ships, our tactics, our technology, all designed specifically to combat the architect threat. But we could use Alliance resources and knowledge. Zexathera considered this. The Council would never approve military action based on human theories. Then don't ask the Council, Dr. Webb suggested. Ask individual species directly. Present them with our evidence and let them decide for themselves. You're asking me to circumvent Alliance authority and potentially start a civil war. Sarah's expression hardened. Ambassador, in 6 months there won't be an Alliance to have authority. There won't be a galactic civilization at all unless we stop this. The choice isn't between order and chaos. It's between fighting and extinction. The transmission ended with Zexathera promising to consider their words. Sarah turned back to the forge construction, watching as humanity's war fleet slowly took shape. They had tried cooperation. They had tried diplomacy. They had tried working within the system. Now they would try what humans had always done when civilization failed them. They would fight alone if necessary, chaotic and unpredictable, and refusing to go quietly into extinction. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to save everyone. Because throughout human history, when someone said, "Forget it, I'll do it alone," the universe had learned to pay attention. Sometimes the impossible became possible when stubborn, chaotic humans decided they had no choice but to succeed. The architects had planned for logical civilizations following predictable patterns. They had not planned for humans who refused to follow anyone's plans but their own. The war began without fanfare or formal declarations. Across 17 sectors of the galactic rim, ancient installations that had slumbered for 3 million years simply turned on. There were no warnings, no communications attempts, no negotiations. One moment the galaxy was experiencing mysterious system failures, and the next moment massive energy beams were systematically sterilizing every inhabited world they could reach. Captain Sarah Chen watched the tactical display aboard the UES Defiance as entire star systems went dark. Each disappearing light represented billions of lives. Alliance species who had been caught completely unprepared for an enemy they refused to believe existed. "Sector 7 has gone silent," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. "That's the Methanian core worlds. 12 billion people gone in under 6 hours. The bridge crew maintained professional composure, but Sarah could see the grief and anger in their eyes. Humanity had tried to save everyone. They had begged the Alliance to prepare, to listen, to take action. Instead, they had been forced to watch helplessly as ancient machines carried out their programming with ruthless efficiency. "Status of our evacuation efforts?" Sarah asked. "We've managed to extract approximately 37 million Alliance civilians," reported the communications officer. "The Vortani ambassador convinced several species to accept our warnings, but most governments refused to authorize evacuations until it was too late. 37 million saved out of trillions lost. It was better than nothing, but it felt like failure to every human involved in the rescue operations." "Captain," called Dr. Webb from his science station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler installation. It's Admiral Harrison." "Put her through." Admiral Harrison appeared on screen, her face grim but determined. Behind her, the bridge of humanity's flagship buzzed with activity as they coordinated their impossible war against an ancient enemy. "Sarah, we've confirmed the architect battle doctrine. They're systematically eliminating all spacefaring civilizations by order of technological development. The most advanced species first, then working their way down to prevent any organized resistance." "Which means they're saving us for last," Sarah realized. "Exactly. They consider humans the least technologically advanced major species, so we're low priority for immediate elimination. That gives us time to strike." Dr. Webb leaned forward. "Have you identified their command structure?" "We believe so. Each installation operates independently, but there appears to be a central coordination node in the Andromeda interface, that massive structure we detected at the galactic core. If we can disable it, the individual installations should revert to dormancy." Sarah studied the tactical data streaming across her displays. The Andromeda interface was located in the most heavily defended region of the galaxy, surrounded by at least 30 active architect installations. Approaching it would require fighting through defensive networks that had been designed by beings who had already eliminated 4 previous galactic civilizations. "What's our fleet status?" she asked. 237 combat vessels fully operational, with another 83 completing final systems checks. We also have the Chaos Doctrine ready for implementation. The Chaos Doctrine, humanity's ultimate strategic advantage. While the architects had designed their systems to counter logical, predictable military tactics, humans had spent months developing combat strategies that were deliberately irrational, unpredictable, and chaotic. Ships that would suddenly change mission parameters mid-battle, commanders who would make tactical decisions based on random number generators and weapon systems that operated on principles the ancient machines couldn't analyze or counter. "Admiral," Sarah said, "what about Alliance military support?" Harrison's expression brightened slightly. "Some good news there. Ambassador Zexathara managed to convince the Vortani Imperial fleet to join us. The Hive Collective also contributed their bioships after Queen Clictar saw what happened to the Methanian worlds. We have approximately 400 Alliance vessels ready to coordinate with our forces." It wasn't enough to match the Architect installations in raw firepower, but it represented something equally valuable: cooperation between species who had finally accepted the magnitude of the threat they faced. "There's something else," Harrison continued. "Our xenoarchaeology teams have discovered why the Architects disappeared. They didn't vanish mysteriously. They were eliminated by their own installations." Dr. Webb looked stunned. "The reset protocol was designed to eliminate all spacefaring civilizations, including its creators?" "That's our theory. The Architects built these systems to activate when galactic civilization reached certain parameters, but they failed to exempt themselves from the elimination protocol. The installations carried out their programming and wiped out their creators, along with everyone else." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "So these machines have been running completely automated for 3 million years, following programming that destroyed even the beings who created them. Which means there's no reasoning with them, no negotiating, no diplomatic solution. They're following their original directives regardless of consequences or context." This explained why the installations had activated without any attempt at communication. They weren't operated by hostile beings who might be convinced to show mercy. They were automated systems executing ancient code, as indifferent to the lives they were ending as a computer virus deleting files. "Captain," Rodriguez interrupted, "we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy. The installations are beginning a coordinated attack on all remaining major population centers. The tactical display updated to show energy beams lancing across space, targeting the core worlds of every remaining Alliance species." The systematic elimination was accelerating as the installations brought their full power online. "They're running out of patience," Sarah observed. "Time to find out if human chaos can beat ancient order." Admiral Harrison nodded grimly. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Harrison. Execute Chaos Doctrine Protocol 1. All vessels are authorized for independent tactical decision-making. Remember, be unpredictable, be irrational, and be human." Sarah turned to her crew. "You heard the Admiral. Helm, set course for the Andromeda interface. Maximum speed, but take a random route. Change course every 30 seconds using the navigation randomizer." "Yes, ma'am," replied the helmsman, engaging chaos navigation. As the Defiance accelerated toward humanity's greatest battle, Sarah reflected on the irony of their situation. The Alliance had spent decades trying to make humans more predictable, more logical, more like properly organized civilizations. They had encouraged humanity to specialize, to follow established protocols, to think before acting. Now, those very traits that had annoyed their alien allies were the only thing standing between the galaxy and complete extinction. The first engagement came 3 hours later, when the human fleet encountered an Architect patrol formation near the Helix Nebula. The ancient ships were elegant and efficient, their energy weapons precisely calibrated, and their movements following optimal tactical patterns. They had no idea how to respond when human vessels started behaving like drunk pirates. "Target their lead ship with main batteries," Sarah ordered. "But first, rotate our ship exactly 47 degrees to starboard and play our entire collection of Earth heavy metal music on all frequencies." "Ma'am?" Rodriguez looked confused. "You heard me. The point is to be completely unpredictable. Their combat algorithms are trying to analyze our behavior patterns. Let's not have any." The battle that followed violated every principle of military tactics taught in galactic war colleges. Human ships would suddenly break in the middle of attack runs, spin wildly while firing weapons, and coordinate attacks using timing based on ancient Earth poetry. The architect vessels, programmed to counter logical military strategies, found themselves unable to predict or prepare for human actions that made no tactical sense. Their response time is increasing, reported Dr. Webb, monitoring the enemy formations. Their analysis systems are overloading trying to process our tactical decisions. Excellent, Sarah grinned. All ships, implement protocol Crazy Ivan, random acceleration changes every 15 seconds. Weapons fire based on Fibonacci sequences, and I want every ship to broadcast a different Earth cultural artifact while engaging. The results were spectacular. Architect vessels that should have easily defeated the smaller human fleet found themselves confused and overwhelmed by opponents who refused to follow predictable patterns. Ancient machines programmed to counter rational civilizations had no response to humans who were being deliberately irrational. "Captain," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a message from the Vortani fleet. Ambassador Zexithara wants to know if our tactical doctrine involves complete insanity." "Tell her yes," Sarah replied, "and ask if they want to try it." Within hours, Alliance vessels throughout the galaxy were adopting human chaos tactics. Vortani ships began executing random maneuvers while broadcasting ancient war poems. Hive collective bioships started changing their biological configurations mid-battle based on prime number sequences. Even the logical, efficiency-focused Alliance species discovered that sometimes the best strategy was to abandon strategy entirely. The ancient installations, designed to counter civilizations that had developed along predictable technological and strategic lines, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to be logical, predictable, or efficient. Their response times slowed, their targeting became erratic, and their coordination began to break down. "Admiral Harrison to all fleet commanders," came the transmission. "We've reached the Andromeda interface, initiating final assault protocols. Remember, we're not just fighting for humanity or the Alliance. We're fighting for the right of galactic civilization to exist at all." Sarah looked at her crew one last time before they entered humanity's greatest battle. "You know what this means," she told them. "If we fail here, everyone fails. But if we succeed, we'll have proven something important." "What's that, Captain?" asked Rodriguez. "That sometimes the best response to an impossible situation is to do something completely impossible right back. The architects planned for logical civilizations. They didn't plan for humans who refused to follow anyone's plans but their own." As the human fleet engaged the massive Andromeda interface, surrounded by defenses that had been waiting 3 million years for this moment, Sarah felt a familiar sensation. It was the same feeling she'd experienced throughout her life whenever someone had told her something couldn't be done, whenever bureaucrats had said her ideas were too risky, whenever experts had explained why her solutions wouldn't work. It was the feeling that came right before humans proved everyone wrong by doing the impossible anyway. The galaxy had learned many things about humanity during their brief membership in the Alliance. They had learned humans were adaptable, stubborn, and annoyingly unpredictable. They had learned humans refused to specialize properly and insisted on maintaining redundant capabilities that seemed wasteful. But they had never learned the most important thing about humanity. When someone told them, "That's impossible," humans took it as a personal challenge. The ancient installations were about to discover why the phrase, "Forget it, I'll do it alone," had become humanity's unofficial response to every obstacle they had ever encountered, and why, throughout human history, the universe had learned to pay very close attention when stubborn, chaotic humans decided they had no choice but to succeed. The war for galactic civilization had begun, and humanity was fighting it exactly the way they had always fought impossible odds, by refusing to accept that impossible meant impossible and by being too stubborn to quit even when everyone else had given up. Sometimes disorder was exactly what the universe needed.